That Jefferson nickel in your pocket may look completely normal, but one mint mark, one set of full steps, or one genuine mint error can change the entire story. Stay with us, inspect every detail, and subscribe to Coin Clues so you never miss a valuable clue.
If you have a 1987 P5 coin sitting in your pocket, an old jar, a drawer, or a collection somewhere in your home, do not spend it just yet, because you could be holding a coin that collectors have paid serious money for at auction. And if your particular example has an extraordinary condition, unusual strike, or rare characteristics, its story can become much more interesting. In fact, one 1987 Jefferson Nickel variety has reached an auction record of $1,800, while the regular 1987 issue has also appeared in important auctions. So before you dismiss this little 5-cent coin as ordinary pocket change, take a closer look, because you might be luckier than you think. The 1987 Jefferson Nickel was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and nearly 371.5 million examples were produced. That huge mintage means most 1987 nickels are common today, and an ordinary circulated example generally isn't worth anything close to thousands of dollars. But coin collecting is not always about how old a coin is. Sometimes condition, strike quality, preservation, and small details can completely change the story. The coin itself weighs approximately 5 grams and measures about 21.2 millimeters across. It is made from a copper-nickel composition containing 75% copper and 25% nickel, with a plain edge. The famous obverse features the portrait of Thomas Jefferson facing left, created by designer Felix Schlag. Around Jefferson are the words Liberty and I in God We Trust, while the date 1987 and the P mint mark identify the year and Philadelphia production. Flip the coin over and you will see Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia home, positioned at the center. Below it are the words 5 cents, while United States of America and E pluribus unum surround the design. At first glance, it looks like millions of other Jefferson nickels, and that is exactly why many people ignore it. But experienced collectors know that the highest grade examples can be a completely different story. One important designation to understand is full steps, commonly abbreviated FS. This refers to the sharpness and completeness of the steps on Monticello. When those steps are clearly defined, the coin can attract much greater collector attention, especially when combined with a high mint state grade. And this is where your 1987 nickel deserves a second look. A normal circulated coin may be worth only its face value or a small premium, but exceptionally preserved examples can bring considerably more. PCGS records show an MS67 Full Steps 1987 Jefferson Nickel selling for $264 at auction, demonstrating that condition can dramatically increase the value of a coin that was originally worth just 5 cents. Even more impressive, the PCGS auction record for the 1987 P5C Full Steps variety is $1,800 for an MS68 FS example sold by Heritage Auctions in April 2021. That is an extraordinary result for a coin from a year with such a large mintage. But now comes the part that makes collectors stop and look twice. You may have heard claims online that a 1987 P5 coin could be worth $80,000. If you have this coin, you might feel like the luckiest person in the world. But there is an important distinction. The documented auction records and market data available for the 1987 Jefferson Nickel do not currently support an $80,000 sale for an ordinary 1987 nickel. The verified PCGS auction record for the Full Steps variety is $1,800, and other certified examples have sold for hundreds of dollars depending on grade and quality. So where does the huge $80,000 figure come from? It is often used in viral coin videos and online claims, but collectors should never assume that a dramatic number automatically represents the real market value of their coin. The real treasure is finding an example with exceptional preservation, a top grade, full steps, or an unusual error or variety that can be authenticated by a professional grading service. If your 1987 nickel looks unusually sharp, has strong original luster, and shows clearly defined steps on Monticello, it may deserve closer examination. Do not clean it, polish it, scratch it, or try to improve its appearance yourself, because cleaning can seriously damage collector value. Instead, compare it with certified examples and, if the coin appears exceptional, consider professional authentication and grading. Remember, a coin that looks perfect to the naked eye may receive a very different grade from a professional. And that grade can make a major difference when the coin enters the collector market or an auction. So check your old change, search through those jars of coins, and take another look at every 1987 Jefferson Nickel you find. Most will be common, But the truly exceptional examples are the ones collectors pay attention to. Imagine finding one with incredible preservation, full steps, and an unusual characteristic that survives examination by experts. That tiny 5-cent piece could suddenly become the most interesting coin in your collection. And if you have one right now, don't throw it back into your pocket until you inspect it carefully. You could be luckier than you think. The biggest lesson is simple. Never judge a coin only by its face value. 5 cents in your hand could have a fascinating history, collector demand, and potentially a much higher value under the right circumstances. And if someone tells you your 1987p nickel is worth $80,000, don't simply believe the number. Verify the grade, verify the variety, check real auction records, and have the coin professionally evaluated before making any decision. Because in numismatics, the difference between an ordinary coin and a valuable collectible can come down to details that are almost impossible to notice without experience. So check your 1987p 5-cent coins today, because the next interesting discovery could be sitting quietly in your change jar. If you find one with strong details, brilliant surfaces, full steps, or anything unusual, tell us about it in the comments, and share what you see on your coin. You never know when a small piece of pocket change might turn into a collector's treasure. If you have a 1991 D 5-cent coin sitting in your pocket, an old coin jar, or somewhere in your collection, do not spend it too quickly, because this little Jefferson nickel could be far more interesting than its 5-cent face value suggests. And if your coin is in extraordinary condition, has sharp details, full steps, or an unusual minting characteristic, you could have something collectors are willing to pay much more for at auction. So if you have this coin, you might be one of the luckiest people in the world. The 1991 D Jefferson Nickel was struck at the Denver Mint, and millions were produced for circulation. That means most examples are common, and a normal worn 1991 D nickel is generally worth around face value. But the story changes dramatically when we start talking about condition. Coin collectors don't simply look at the date. They examine the surfaces, luster, strike, marks, and especially the famous steps of Monticello. The 1991 D Jefferson Nickel weighs about 5 grams and measures approximately 21.2 millimeters in diameter. It is made from the standard copper-nickel composition used for Jefferson nickels of this era, with 75% copper and 25% nickel. On the front of the coin, you can see Thomas Jefferson facing left, along with the words Liberty and Iron God We Trust. The date 1991 appears on the obverse, and the small d mint mark tells you that the coin was produced at the Denver Mint. Turn the coin over and you will find Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia home, surrounded by United States of America and E pluribus unum, with 5 cents displayed below. Now here's where things become interesting. Most people look at the date, see 1991, notice the D mint mark, and immediately assume the coin is worthless. But serious collectors know that condition can transform an ordinary coin into a much more desirable collectible. One of the most important features to inspect is the area directly beneath Monticello. Look closely at the steps. Are they weak and blurry, or can you clearly see individual steps with strong separation? Coins with exceptionally sharp full steps can command premiums because they are much harder to find in high grades. And this is exactly why you should never clean your 1991 D nickel. Cleaning, polishing, scratching, or rubbing the surface can destroy the natural appearance that collectors and grading companies want to see. Instead, hold the coin carefully by its edges and examine it under good lighting. Look for original mint luster, minimal contact marks, strong details, and especially clearly defined steps on Monticello. If your coin has all of these characteristics, it may be worth having professionally graded. Now let's talk about the exciting part, auctions. Some high-grade Jefferson nickels from ordinary production years have brought surprisingly strong prices at auction when they combine exceptional grades with full steps. That doesn't mean every 1991 D nickel is secretly worth thousands of dollars, but it does mean that the right coin can become much more valuable than its 5-cent face value. In the world of coin collecting, rarity is not always about how many coins were originally produced. Sometimes the real rarity is how many survive in exceptional condition with extraordinary strikes. Millions can be minted, but only a tiny number may survive with nearly flawless surfaces and sharp full steps. That is why collectors carefully examine coins that most people would simply spend. Imagine finding a 1991 D nickel that has been protected inside a collection for decades, showing brilliant original luster and extremely sharp Monticello steps. Now imagine that coin receiving an elite grade from a professional grading service and appearing in a major collector auction. Suddenly, that ordinary-looking 5-cent piece becomes something collectors are willing to compete for. If you have this coin, you are definitely lucky enough to check it carefully before spending it. But be careful with sensational claims. You may see websites or videos claiming that a 1991 D5-cent coin is worth $80,000 or even more. A number like that should never be accepted without evidence. Real auction records, professional grading, and comparable sales are what determine whether a coin actually commands a huge price. The important thing is to separate a genuine collectible from an ordinary circulated example. If your 1991 D nickel is worn, scratched, stained, or heavily circulated, it will probably remain close to face value. But if it is an exceptional uncirculated example with outstanding full steps, the story can be very different. And if you discover an authentic mint error or an unusual variety, that could make the coin even more interesting to specialists. So before you spend your next 1991 D Jefferson Nickel, turn it over, inspect Monticello, and look carefully at those steps. Check the surfaces, examine the strike, and compare the coin with professionally graded examples. You never know what might be hiding in an old collection or forgotten coin jar. The greatest discoveries in numismatics often begin with someone deciding not to ignore an ordinary-looking coin. So if you have a 1991 D5-cent coin, keep it safe for now and take a closer look. You might not have an $80,000 treasure, but you could have a surprisingly valuable high-grade collectible, and only a careful examination can tell you whether your coin deserves a place in a collection or even a future auction. If you have a 1991 D nickel, tell us about its condition in the comments, especially whether the Monticello steps are clearly visible. And remember, the next valuable coin you discover could already be sitting in your pocket. If you have a 1961 5-cent coin sitting in an old collection, a forgotten drawer, or a jar of coins, do not spend it until you take a very close look, because this small Jefferson nickel could be much more interesting than its 5-cent face value. And if you have this coin in exceptional condition, you could be one of the luckiest people in the world. The 1961 Jefferson Nickel is especially interesting to collectors because coins from this era were made with a composition containing 75% copper and 25% nickel, and they weigh approximately 5 grams. The coin measures about 21.2 millimeters across and has a plain edge. On the front, you can see the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson facing left, with liberty and iron God we trust surrounding the design. The date 1961 appears near the lower right side of Jefferson's portrait. Turn the coin over and you will see Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia home, along with United States of America, E pluribus unum, and 5 cents. At first glance, this might look like just another old nickel. But collectors know that the details can make a huge difference. The first thing you need to determine is whether your 1961 nickel has a mint mark. Depending on the coin, you may find a small D indicating the Denver Mint, while Philadelphia examples from this period were produced without a mint mark. The mint mark, condition, strike, and overall appearance can all influence collector interest. Now here's where things become exciting. When collectors examine a 1961 Jefferson nickel, they pay close attention to the condition of the surfaces and the sharpness of the design. Scratches, dents, discoloration, and heavy wear can reduce desirability, while strong original luster and sharp details can make an example much more attractive. One of the most important areas to inspect is Monticello on the reverse. Look closely at the steps beneath the building. Are they weak and blended together, or can you clearly see individual steps? Coins with exceptionally sharp full steps can command significant premiums in the collector market because finding older Jefferson nickels with both high grades and strong strikes can be difficult. This is why you should never clean your coin. Do not polish it, scrub it, use chemicals, or try to make it shine. A coin that appears dirty to you might have natural surfaces that collectors value, and cleaning can permanently damage those surfaces. Instead, hold the coin by its edges and inspect it under bright, indirect light. Look for original mint luster, strong lettering, sharp details, and minimal contact marks. If the coin looks unusually well preserved after more than 6 decades, it could be worth professional evaluation. And this is where auctions become very important. A normal circulated 1961 nickel may only have a modest collector premium, but exceptional examples can attract serious attention when they reach major auctions. Collectors compete for coins that combine a high grade, strong strike, beautiful surfaces, and desirable characteristics. In some cases, the value difference between an ordinary circulated coin and a top-quality certified example can be enormous. You might even see dramatic claims online suggesting that a 1961 5-cent coin is worth $80,000. If you have this coin, you might immediately think you are the luckiest person in the world. But don't believe an enormous price claim without checking real evidence. An $80,000 figure should not be treated as the normal value of a 1961 Jefferson Nickel. Real auction records, professional grading, and comparable sales are what matter when determining the market value of a coin. The truth is that most 1,961 nickels will not be worth anywhere near that amount. However, that does not mean you should ignore yours. A rare variety, exceptional grade, full steps designation, or genuine mint error can make a coin significantly more desirable. The fascinating thing about numismatics is that two coins with the exact same date can have completely different values depending on their condition and characteristics. Imagine finding a 1961 nickel that has spent decades protected from circulation. The surfaces are bright, the portrait is sharply defined, the lettering is crisp, and the steps of Monticello are remarkably clear. Now imagine that coin being authenticated, professionally graded, and offered at a major collector auction. Suddenly, the little 5-cent coin becomes something much more exciting. That is why collectors never judge an old coin simply by its face value. Before you put your 1961 nickel back into circulation, check the date, identify the mint mark, examine the reverse, and look carefully at the Monticello steps. Check for unusual doubling, missing details, strange surfaces, or other characteristics that could make the coin different from a normal example. If you believe you have something special, don't clean it. Protect it and have it examined by a reputable coin expert or grading service. Remember, the difference between a common old nickel and a valuable collectible can sometimes be hidden in details that are almost impossible to recognize without experience. So if you have a 1961 5-cent coin, take another look before spending it. You may not have an $80,000 treasure, but you could have an interesting collector coin that deserves much more attention than its 5-cent face value. And if your coin is in incredible condition, has full steps, or shows an unusual variety or error, you could have a coin that collectors would want to investigate further. If you have one of these 1961 nickels, tell us what condition yours is in and whether you can see the steps on Monticello. You never know. The next exciting coin discovery could be hiding inside your old change jar.